So we're going here. All right, John.
Mhm.
Start by telling the audience where you're at in the world.
Okay, I'm currently based in Milan, the city of Milan. Actually, technically, the northern part of the city of Milan. So I'm north of Piazzale Loreto, which is where they hanged Mussolini. If
Right.
you're interested in that little bit of
Historical
historical
stop there.
data, yeah. So I'm nearby that great place, and yeah. So I've been stuck in here for about almost three weeks.
Three
I've been
weeks
stuck
is
in my house.
in your house for 3 weeks in Milan.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
take me to your very first memory or the first time that COVID-19, this whole outbreak thing, Wuhan, China. When did that come onto your radar? When would you become aware?
Yeah, well, aware I don't know was probably before Christmas because I mean, you read in the news that there was this thing going on in China, and I got to be honest, I was one of the doubters. I was like, I did not think that this was going to be a serious situation. I've been trauma. I mean, I'm 38 years old, so I've lived through, like, I've heard of the SARS, the mad cow, the chicken flu. It's like
Right.
every 2 months, journalists would go crazy on some kind of new flu that's supposed to come out and it's supposed to kill us all. And at this point, I was like, look, I'm tired of this bullshit. I've heard it all before.
Right.
Nothing's going to happen. We're all going to get nervous about it, and that's it. And this is the one time that I was wrong, obviously. But so it was probably on my radar like before December. So, if I'd sneeze, you'd make a joke like, it's Corona, everybody laughs and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's all it is. But people were making the Corona jokes with the beer
Right.
and stuff like that. And then I think when it really hit when it really hit, I'm trying to pinpoint the exact day, but I think it was Sunday, the 23rd of February, if I'm not mistaken, because I was actually doing a comedy show with some colleagues, right? And I get the news that there's one infected nearby Milan,
Right.
and they're now going to close down the whole area. Actually, it may have been before that. I'm not really sure. But anyway, they're going to close down the whole area. There's a little town. I forget the name of the town right now. The little town nearby. They're closing it off. They're quarantining in it. There's a so-called patient one, which is this guy who had a severe fever, and he went to the emergency room. And then he started to feel better, so he left.
Oh, goodness.
And then he came back because he started feeling ill again. So he went to the emergency room twice and basically infected the whole emergency room twice.
Holy
And
shit.
that was like the epicenter of the whole infection here in Italy. And that was what they called patient one. No?
Were they even testing for that specifically when he came in at all? Was it even on the radar of something that they could?
If I remember correctly, from what I read, they tested it the second time. So like the first time, I think he may have just left on his own, because probably I can imagine that if you go to the emergency room and you have a high fever, they're just going to have you wait for a long time.
Right.
So he probably just got frustrated, got up and said, fuck this, I'm leaving.
Okay.
And then later he's probably felt really, really sick again. He said, no, I was wrong. Let me go back. And then they took him in and then they tested him. So it was theoretically on the radar, but what wasn't on the radar was the necessary information that if you have something that you suspect to be the COVID, to be the corona, you should not go to an emergency room, because you're going to just infect everybody who's waiting there with you.
Right.
In fact, the next day they had the number out. They said, do not go to emergency room, call this number, we'll come to you.
Okay.
But by then it was too late. But then there's a lot thing I was reading the other day. They said, oh no, but actually, the problem was that he was patient one. They never found patient zero. They don't know who infected him. And it could have been anyway, because for example, just like a week before that, I had a colleague in the sense of a comedian, female comedian, who had been in China and had been working in China, and she had come back, and she's fine. Okay. So she clearly didn't have anything, but, and we were all making jokes about, her having coronavirus, and that we couldn't stay near her until, she was officially considered out of danger. So it was kind of on the radar. There was this this idea that if you came back from China, you had to not, share a cigarette or share a joint or share a beer with anybody. There was that idea.
What was your, talking still February 23rd-ish,
Hmm.
did you have a perception of how serious it was? Were you still a little kind of poo-pooing it a little bit about, this is no
Yeah,
big
yeah, yeah. I was
deal?
poo-pooing it totally. It was a total poo-poo because it was absolutely like Blackadder. It was the poo-poo. It was absolutely poo-pooing it totally because not only that, I remember that I'm not really sure with the dates, but it was around
Right.
that period.
Around that time.
At some point, me and other two comedians, we're putting together a podcast of our own, and we have a thing we call like comedians and things where we talk about different topics in every episode. It's in
Right.
Italian, of course.
Okay.
And we said, well, why don't we do an episode on the coronavirus? So, and Clara, who's a good friend of mine, Clara Campi, I think you know her on the social media.
Yeah.
And she says, well, we should be careful about doing the coronavirus because the situation can change so rapidly. That
Right.
the podcast will no longer be up to date. So I
Right.
said, screw that shit. Flare it up. Let's do it. And then I immediately start with, this is all bullshit. It's gonna pass. And I totally trust my government. They're gonna quarantine 4 or 5 assholes, and then we'll be
Right.
back
Right.
to normal.
Everything
So
will be fine.
I was the first of the poo-poos or
Okay.
the poo-pooers of the coronavirus. So I know exactly what it's like to feel like, this is not gonna hit me.
Right. Well,
Because that was me.
you weren't alone in that. I
No.
can remember in that late February time that there were, I was posting a few things like I was like, this feels different. I was looking mostly videos from China and reactions and how the level of treatment when we see the Chinese officials walking down the street spraying the streets with some kind of cleaner or disinfectant or whatever, and
Yeah.
you see videos released of doors being welded shut, and I'm like, this feels different than everything else I remember about SARS and all that stuff. And I was still getting, I wasn't committed one way or the other, but I was getting people who were commenting on posts that I was making about that, like, hey, look at this. They're like, oh, it's just fear porn. This has happened before. So you're not
Fear
alone in your
porn.
skepticism. Yeah, I love that term, fear
I
porn,
love that. It's good.
which is one I haven't masturbated to yet. We'll get there. So as it progressed, as again, late February, early March here, can you relate some of your maybe a changing emotions and things that you were seeing as this thing was taking hold of your country?
Yeah. So basically, the first thing you see is people with the masks, which you probably see now in
Yeah.
Minneapolis, right? Yeah, people going around masks.
Actually less than I would suspect, but that it's starting to be more
Well,
common.
I'm not gonna hide, and I'm not gonna pretend that I was like a Cassandra or anything. I
Right.
did not expect it to hit. So I was like, these idiots with their stupid masks. And then I'll touch the bar on the subway, and I'll touch everything, and I'll just sit down where somebody just vomited. I don't
Right.
care. This is bullshit. It's fear mongering on the right. It's because of the right. It's the league, and because I'm very left wing. They have a term in Milan for people like me. They call them radical chic, which is like you're radically left wing, but in a way that's fashionable.
Okay. Nice.
And they were like saying that the radical chic of Milan would just like they'd go to Chinatown specifically to prove that they're not afraid of it, and they're gonna spit in each other's mouth, because
Right.
it's just the league, the right wing party that wants everybody to be afraid of China and immigration, and let's all
Right.
love each other. And so I was like, I'm on that bank, obviously. So I'm like, I'm not caring at all. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not wearing gloves. I'm just going to work. But then you realize that the situation, slowly you realize the situation becomes serious. I think the moment you realize it becomes serious is when the government is actually starting to close things down.
Right.
Because, okay, the schools, that's the first thing they closed down. The comedy shows all got canceled. And
Right.
I manage a few comedy shows myself, and I was doing everything I could to keep them alive. I was like, we were looking like they'd release a decree, and the decree would say you can have. I remember at the beginning, at some point, there was a thing where they said you can have a show, but only if people are sitting down.
Hmm.
So like me and other comedians were trying to put together situations where everybody would be sitting down at a table, and there'd
Okay.
be a table so that officially we'd be within the measures of the decree.
So you, as the
And
performer,
now,
were sitting at a table performing, sitting down. Is that what I'm
no, I'm
visualizing?
sorry. No, let me explain. The audience. So the
Oh,
idea is
okay.
like if you just have the audience sitting down, that
Okay.
wasn't acceptable. But if they were sitting down to be served, that was acceptable. So if you made sure that every chair had access to a table, to a like a dining table or something, like a bar table,
Right.
then they could sit down officially. We were looking for any kind of loophole,
Right.
basically, until at one point I said, well, why don't we just wait for this whole thing to pass over and just cancel our shows, And so I was calling colleagues from all over Italy saying, I'm sorry, you can't come. Some of them were calling me and saying, look, I don't feel comfortable coming to the show that you booked me for and stuff like
Right.
that. And so at that point, so at the beginning, it's just, us comedians complaining. The school kids are having the time of their lives. Like the city was invaded with teenagers just running amok,
Right.
because they're all suddenly free from school and nobody started, e-learning or, distance learning yet, because now all that's in place. So now they're at home, studying and stuff.
Was there any beginning of the concern for the social distancing? Let me spit the
That
word
that
out.
happened
Social
later. So
distancing.
I'm trying to get my dates right, because
Right.
I remember the last show I did, I think, was on the 22nd or 23rd of February. I don't remember, and I
Uh-huh.
killed, by the way. So at least
Nice.
I have that. Worst thing would be if I had like died on stage, and then I'd have to like go through the whole quarantine thinking that I suck as a comedian. Yeah, that would be like, oh fuck.
Yeah, if
I
comedy
don't
never
even.
comes back and your last set was a bad set. Yeah, that's
Exactly. That's the
oh,
worst thing.
the
Because at least,
worst.
when you have a bad set, you're like, well, I'll get up tomorrow, and then maybe I'll improve and I'll feel better about myself. At least I did well.
Right.
I can put that in my pocket or whatever. We started canceling shows. I think the social distancing, it started. Yeah, it must have been. So let me. It must have been. It was the beginning of March, right? Yeah,
Right.
so basically we go through a whole week in which everybody's confused. Yeah, so like from the 24th to the 24th of February, 1st of March, nobody knows what's going on. There's people like me who are just complete idiots who are thinking, oh, we got to get the comedy rolling again. We got this bullshit. It's just a normal flu. That was the classic, came out. That we've been saying that since February.
Right.
It's just a normal flu. It's just a normal flu. It's just the old people are gonna die. Who needs them anyway? Less pensions. That's more money for the worst thoughts are coming out.
That might be the most frustrating thing I hear is the people who are like, well, yeah, well, we have all these deaths of the normal flu every year, and they can't wrap their head around or conceptualize the difference between what a normal flu death is and then what we're seeing here with this flu and
Well,
the
yeah,
rate of it.
actually, we should talk about that
Go ahead.
later, because it's interesting. Because even I was like part of that camp. I was like, it's a normal flu. I mean, what are we getting all over into? It's the media. They're just fear mongering, fear porn, like you
Right.
said, Joey, whatever. And that's and not. But it wasn't just us. It wasn't just like idiots like me. I mean, it was even the government itself. I mean, the mayor of Milan, who's actually a well beloved mayor, who's left wing Democrat, whatever. Pisa Pia is his name. He actually shared the hashtag Milano riparte, which means that Milan continues. Milan
Okay.
goes on. Because Milan's the New York of Italy. So it's like, Milanese are known for being workaholics, and they always want to work and make money, and they're very different than other Italians that are more relaxed. The Milan people are like, they're always in a rush.
Okay.
And that was a very Milan thing to say, we're going to continue working and everything. And he was even promoting that. He was like saying, we're not going to close the aperitivi. We're not going to close the clubs. I mean, my girlfriend went to a party on like the 1st of March. I think on Saturday, the 29th of March, we went out looking for an aperitivo. And I noticed that the streets were empty because there were people who were much smarter than me, who were like, had already figured out that this was a dangerous situation. And I was like going around Milan, and I'd find, a nice aperitivo, and there's nobody there. And there's all this food. So it's like, oh,
Right.
let's get a beer, let's get a drink, let's have the food. It's all for us. This is great. I like this epidemic. It's awesome. Not unbeknownst to us, we're obviously risking basically death
Right.
by having that.
It
And
is looking at video and pictures from Italy and like the tourism hotspots and all that stuff. It's astonishing seeing.
it's scary.
Yeah, the pictures that came out about the I can't remember the name of the of the location. But things I've never seen pictures of without masses of people. Seeing them there just
Yeah.
deserted in the middle
Well,
of the day.
did you see the pictures of Venice?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The canals and the
Yeah,
cleanliness
they're
of the
all clean
canals.
again.
Yeah.
That's like the most amazing thing is that if I stick my head out of the window here, the air of Milan is clean.
Right.
And that's like the silver lining to the whole thing is that actually I look outside, I have a small little garden out of my
Okay.
house, and it's full of pigeons. It's like nature's reclaiming the world
Just that
as
quick.
we speak. Yeah, just that quick. It's like it shows you how really small humanity is.
How insignificant we are in the span of history. It doesn't take long for us to be wiped away if it.
We just disappeared for not even a month, and already nature's reclaiming everything.
Yeah. The Earth feels so much more relaxed right now. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, well, think about all the planes that are not flying.
Right.
I remember, like they said, Greta Thunberg didn't want people to use the plane. Well, here you go. Wish granted.
Congrats, Greta.
That's exactly what you wanted, and you can see the difference. But anyway, I mean, like I keep on saying, I was a total idiot. Then it was the first week of March. The first week of March, I'm still completely oblivious to everything. I'm still going to work. I'm still doing all my shit. And like I said, meanwhile, but I'm starting to think something's going to happen. I don't think it's a danger, but I think something's going to happen. So like on the 2nd, 3rd, of March, I was already stocking up on pasta and beans and tomatoes and stuff like that. And then we had the supermarket rush, like happened 3 weeks before it happened over in the States.
Okay.
Where ironically we didn't have the toilet paper rush that you had.
Right.
It's a matter of debate why this didn't happen in Italy. But many people believe because in Italy we have the bidets.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you guys are,
and so like nobody really cared about toilet paper. It wasn't an issue. It's like we'll just wash our asses with water.
Well, that said, bidet sales have gone up here, so that makes sense. Yeah, people have bought those. We've actually considered getting one for our house, but
well, actually, besides the coronavirus, a bidet is so awesome. Let me just defend bidet. You have no idea the pleasure of just spraying warm water on your asshole and sliding your finger in a little bit. It's just, Joey, I want you to know you're missing out.
Well, as much as I enjoy pooping regular, I can only imagine what it would be like to be able to poop and then have warm water shoved in my asshole.
It's amazing. It's like
I would never leave the bathroom at that point. I would just be there.
In fact, I hardly do.
I would be recording this episode right now on the toilet if I could.
Exactly. I spent whole 40, 50 minutes in the toilet. It's so pleasurable. It's like taking a shit and then taking a shower every time.
Right.
Okay, so this is a little bit of it's just a brackets, for your audience. I think that's important that we defend.
I think you're hitting my audience right where they things they appreciate, so that's good.
It's a very specific need that your audience has. I'm just trying to hit the target there. But actually, apparently, it's also very useful for women, and
right. It works all angles.
Where it's just there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfect. So anyway, having closed the bracket on bidets, so basically that's the whole thing. So I started to stock up and everything, and then at one point I said I think it was like Friday I think our last aperitivo was on the 7th of March, and I totally regret having done that because there was a birthday party there. Mm-hmm. There was a birthday party, and I could have very easily have gotten infected.
Right.
That's an absolute fact. In fact, I've been thinking today's the 26th of March. It's actually also my birthday, believe it or not. So I'm spending my birthday in the house like this with you. So
thank you.
No, thank you, Joey. Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here. And so it's like it's a dormancy period of 14 days or something like that. So I basically have been thinking if I manage to make it to the 26th of March without coughing or sneezing or, getting respiratory problems, I'm probably out of the woods.
Right.
So, I'm probably lucky. I haven't been hit by it. Now I can just enjoy my life indoors for as long as it's going to last.
Right.
I have no idea what the future has in hold for me. But so I did it on the 7th, and then that was it. Then I said to my girlfriend, I said, look, I've got a cat. So if you want to quarantine, you're going to have to quarantine at my place. And so she's over here.
Okay.
And I'm so lucky to have this girl. I have to say, Eladia, she's sleeping right now in the back room. And I am so fucking lucky because she is the best cook in the world. And I have to say this, another silver lining, I have been eating the most delicious food that you could ever imagine in this quarantine. I mean, she makes me lasagna. She made me an apple pie. Just now we had like pasta with like a special onion sauce, which is amazing stuff. So actually, tell you the truth, it's not that bad for me.
Right. It could be
I've,
worse.
it could be a lot worse, for me. But unfortunately, I do have a lot of friends that it's not that great for. I mean, I have a lot of people who are alone.
Right.
They're
I,
alone.
I
In
was just thinking that
quarantine.
it's nice to have
Yeah.
a companion, whether it be somebody you're dating that you can, have some affection with, but just have some conversation where you can look somebody in the eye, face
Oh
to face, and
gosh.
be in person. I can imagine some of the people who are, either shut-ins or individuals who are just, don't have friends, don't have family available to them, or maybe far away. It's just that
Yeah.
psychological impact is as bad sometimes as some of the illness effects.
Yeah, well, I have some friends. I've got some friends that are on their own, going through the quarantine. They can't see their family or anything, and I'll call them like on Zoom or on Skype or whatever, and I hear them munching. I'm like, "What are you eating?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just eating raw pasta."
Jesus
Because
Christ.
it's like, oh, so basically your basic standards of human decency have fallen so deep that you're just crunching on
That
raw
seems extra
pasta.
sad coming from Italy. That just seems
I,
worse.
and this is coming from Italy,
Correct.
exactly. These are Italians, bread.
The comparable would be over here, us eating raw ramen noodles. That would be
Mm,
which I've done before.
I'm pretty sure we've got those too. It's like, I mean, I don't dare to imagine what my life would be like if I didn't have this person,
Right.
here with me, because I would certainly be. Besides the fact that I'd be depressed. I mean, I'm a depressed person as it goes at the best of times.
Right.
Otherwise I wouldn't do comedy, obviously.
Yeah.
And so, I can just imagine I'd probably be eating Pringles every day. Like you say, raw ramen, probably prepare one big pot of pasta and eat it for 3 days in a row,
Right.
without any type of condiment, and then just masturbate all day, which is mostly what people are doing. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, most people are just get
It's
up in
the
the morning
tone of
and
the
masturbate.
masturbation that changes. Sometimes you masturbate because you're celebrating, and then sometimes you masturbate because you're sad.
You
I could
know,
imagine it would be
I
mostly
think
just
it's
sad
even worse
masturbating.
than that. I think it's even worse than that. I think you masturbate sometimes because you don't know what else to do. And that's the worst.
Is that
You
like
know,
bored eating? It's just bored
it's like
masturbating.
bored eating. It's like, I got a half hour. What am I going to do? I'll just jack off. That is the worst type of masturbation because you don't even enjoy it.
Right.
It's like picking your nose.
It becomes a task that needs to be done at that
Oh
point.
my God. We know they made Pornhub free in Italy throughout the whole
I
thing.
heard that
Yeah.
it's free everywhere now. I think.
Oh, it's free everywhere now.
I'm
Yeah,
afraid to
yeah.
click on it though because I don't. If I click on the free content, then I may be forced to subscribe at a
No, no, no,
later
no,
date.
no. They made it free without having to put your credit card details in.
Oh no, I'm
And
just
that was
saying I
the
might
difference.
like it so much I need to. It will become a utility to me that I have to have.
Hell yeah, that's true. But I mean, I mean, what's wrong with that?
That's true.
To be fair, I mean, there's worse things you can do.
I've
Than to
wasted my money on worse.
you
Um,
waste. I'm sure you did. Yeah.
so let's take it to when things got really serious, right?
Yeah.
When death numbers started to stack, and
Oh yeah.
it started to. It seemed like when Italy was kind of like was my barometer for what was going on here. Where at one time I'd heard that we were 2 weeks away from where our what was the actual number? I think it was we started having. Oh, it was like when we had 25 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard a statistic that said at 25 deaths, and we were basically where Italy was 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, now I'm really seriously concerned about what's going on here because I was
I think
watching what was happening there with deaths and everything. So
I think you kind of are because what if I don't have my dates wrong, and the quarantine started for me on the 10th of March, or was it the 3rd of March? But I think it was the 10th of March. I mean, even my perception of time is kind of going out of whack.
it's weird how it does, doesn't it? I don't even know
Yeah,
what day it is today. It's weird.
yeah. If it wasn't my birthday, I wouldn't know. Believe me. It was so like I think it was on the 10th. So in theory, yes. I mean, if you're starting the quarantine now, and you're going to start it tomorrow night,
Right.
basically, from what I understand,
Well,
right?
in this state or in
You
this
know, in
area.
Minneapolis, right, right,
Yeah.
right. Well, yeah, I mean, consider that. I mean, the regions vary. So, I mean, even Lombardy is worse off than, for example, I don't know, Campania or Sicily,
Right.
for example. I mean, Sicily and Sardinia, those are islands, so they're kind of like okay, they've got it under control. You know, they're just doing the quarantine to avoid from it getting out of control. So it does vary from region to region. So I can imagine that in the future, even in the States, it will vary from state to state.
Yeah.
But like focusing on Minneapolis, I think you kind of are, because you'll probably go into quarantine now, and then you're going to start to see the peak. Because I think the worst situation was like last week, like the weekend of last week, because last week we'd already been in quarantine for almost 2 weeks, and the infections kept on rising, like really fast, and the deaths were rising really really fast too. And so obviously the first thought that you have is like, well, we're in quarantine, we're avoiding as much as possible contact with other human beings. Why isn't it going down? And the reason is logical, because if you think about it, it makes sense. It makes sense that people who got infected on the first week of March are starting to show the symptoms on the third week of March,
Right.
right? So that means that you're going to find yourself with a situation where after like a week, 2 weeks of quarantine, things are getting worse. And that's when I think the panic really sets in. I mean, I started getting anxiety attacks. I started taking Valium, you know, and stuff. I have two things that I do when I get panic attacks. I take the medicine, and then I watch Star Trek, because Star Trek calms me down. I don't know if you're a Trekkie.
Okay. Which gen is it? Or which version?
Any Star Trek,
Okay.
doesn't matter. It's like all Star Trek except for Discovery, because Discovery fucking sucks.
Really? I
And
can only do
everybody,
Next Generation. That's the only one I can
I
do.
love Next Generation. My favorite captain. You know, Picard is absolutely the best. But like any Star Trek, I just watch Star Trek with Valium, and then I just kind of like calm down. So I was watching a lot of Star Trek, you know, just to get
Was it?
myself.
Was there ever a Star Trek episode where they dealt with a viral infection
Oh, there
on,
were several.
on the starship?
Joey, don't get me started. You don't want to lose the whole podcast episode on me talking about Star Trek. Let's start with the famous Star Trek episode where there was a virus that made people go insane.
Okay.
And we had Sulu without
Oh
a
yeah,
shirt.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and he was
I
all
remember.
covered in like slimy oil, and he was jumping around the ship with his little sword, and I was wondering, how did people in 1969 not realize that he was gay?
Right.
Looking at that scene, I mean, it was kind of obvious.
Right. Should have known right
No,
there.
no, there were several. There were several. I think there was also a famous like Deep Space Nine episode where they went to the past.
Right.
And in the past, there had been like a virus that had taken out people, and poor people were put in prisons, and it's a whole universe. Star Trek. We don't want to go into the Trekkie realm, but the point is, I've been watching Star Trek and taking Valium. So whatever it is that calms you down when the quarantine becomes serious like that, do it, because you know you're going to need it, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. At this time, it's confusing what's going on. It seems that the infections are going down, but the deaths are rising.
Yeah.
And actually, this is kind of the worst part about the whole thing, is that it's not just people who are dying because of the virus. It's also people who have like other illnesses and can't get the cures that they need, because the virus is basically monopolizing the entire health system. And this kind of, because we were saying before, you know, the whole thing, like it's just a normal flu or whatever. From what I understand, and I'm not a doctor or anything, but the whole point is that this is a flu, okay? It's a very virulent flu. You can recover from it. You can get better, okay? But it requires enormous resources for you to get better.
Right.
And that's really the problem. So the problem is that you need respirators. For the worst cases, you need respirators. You need, you know, all kinds of infrastructure, and that infrastructure is limited in relation to the amounts of people who are getting sick.
Right.
And so this is the real issue. So the real issue isn't like, you know, people are just dying. It's not like, you know, there's a mortal virus that it hits you and you explode. I mean, like, okay, that'd be a problem. But this is like, you can get better, but you need resources to get better. And those resources are also being taken away from other people. Now, I can give you actually a case in point. This is a dear friend of mine. His name is Dado Tedeschi, and I obviously don't know him, but he was a comedian, an older comedian, like 50-year-old comedian.
Yeah.
And he had been the mentor for all of us, me, Clara, my friends, everybody. He taught us how to write jokes. He taught us, stage presence and everything. Everybody loves him, and he had a tough career, successes, failures, friendships, enemies. I mean, like a real comedian who just like full of emotions, full of anger, full of a classic comedian has
Right.
the anger inside. You know what I mean? Otherwise, that's the real essence of the comedian, right? And he had a stroke last year. 10 months ago, he had a stroke and was in the hospital, and everybody would go to see him and see what was going on with him. And unfortunately, it went on and on and on. And unfortunately, he's still in the hospital now during the coronavirus epidemic, and we cannot go see him. And he called me a couple times on the phone, and he's saying, I've been moved. They're no longer giving me physical therapy. So he's not getting better now, and he can't see anybody, which means that he can't help his own brain, because obviously he needs people to come see him to feel better, to know that people are not forgetting about him.
The psychological part of healing, yeah.
Psychological part of healing. So he can't get any of that because we can't go in. And on top of that, I just discovered a few days ago that apparently there were some nurses in the hospital where he is that were positive to the coronavirus, and the hospital did not tell anybody about that.
Right.
And now they're
one of the stats I looked up last night when doing some research on Italy is 4,000 health workers currently infected in Italy right now.
Yeah, I heard that too. Apparently, because they're afraid that if they officially declare that these people are infected, then they're going to take them off the work. And if they take them off the work, then they're not going to have enough healthcare workers to take care of the situation.
Right.
So it's like this weird situation where you have to like pretend that they're well in order to save lives. And that's pretty much what happened in his hospital.
And hope they're able to do more good than they are to do damage, to kind of mitigate that. It's
like a sort of trolley problem sort of thing. It's like, what do you do? Do you just pretend that they're well, or do you like put them in isolation? It's basically like a war. But that's just to give you an example of people who are not directly infected with it, who are still being affected by it.
Right.
And I dare not think about the depression rate. People who are alone, suffering from depression, people who have already lost their jobs, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. Okay, yeah. I mean, even I'm like I'm on a weird sort of social sustenance at the moment as regards my work. I had a good contract, and so I'm fortunate enough that now I can tap into some social resources that will be basically covering my ass for, I hope, about 2-3 months. For example, if it goes beyond 3 months, I'm not going to have a job either.
Right.
That's a fact. And so there's that. People, I mean, I can't imagine people who like lost their job at the beginning of the month and that now have no money for food. What do they do? I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I can only imagine that they'll start scavenging for food. I mean, you can't scavenge for food either because nobody's eating in the streets.
Right.
You got the homeless people, for example. I was reading homeless people are still on the streets. They're not receiving any money because there's nobody to panhandle from, and they can't even scavenge for food because the fast food restaurants are closed. There's no food in the back. I suppose maybe in the back lots of supermarkets because they're still open, but where are they going to go? And there are charities that are providing food for the homeless, but they have to also respect the social distancing. So there's like these very, very, very long lines of people homeless who have to respect social distancing, and it's a humanitarian disaster under a series of levels.
Right.
You don't even think about.
If and when we get out of this, and I'm gonna definitely hope we get out of this. It's going to be interesting to look back at how the homeless population was affected by this, and also the lower economic end of people. And I'm pretty sure this spans every country, because I mean we're already seeing it here. When it first started to hit, and you start hearing about all these athletes getting tested, right?
Oh yeah. A lot of athletes were positive, right?
Well, there's quite a few, but the fact that they were getting these very limited tests, these athletes who are in peak health condition, probably on the lower end of risk for the most part, but they're all having access to the test. And the test is, as I understand it, is like the key component to controlling this, to knowing where it's coming from and where it's going and who has it and who doesn't. And at least in this country, the biggest holdup really is having tests available for people and who gets tested and all that. So I can only assume, and it's partly because I'm jaded and I don't trust the government as it is
Right.
it's going to be to look back 5 years from now when all the cards are on the table and we see what had really went down, how much economic position or social position allowed
No, I
people
get
to
you.
get tested and treated versus those who didn't have it, who were deemed expendable at the time. What's going on in LA right now is, I mean, that
What's happening there? Because they've got an enormous homeless population.
enormous,
There,
and
right?
it's so bad that over the last year or so we were already hearing about all these strange diseases and stuff were reoccurring, things that haven't
Oh
been
God, yeah.
around for years. So I can only, and that compounded with drug use issues and things that have plagued the homeless there and all over anyway, that all just kind of compounds the issue here. Not to mention there's that thing in people's heads like, they're homeless, fuck them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but even if it's like they're homeless, fuck them. It's like let's take it from the least human point of view.
Right.
Let's say that you do not think homeless people deserve anything. They're failures, they're rejects. It's all their fault.
And there's a large percentage of this country that feel that way. Just
right.
Sadly.
Let's take it from that point of view. Let's imagine I'm that type of person. Okay. Even there, you still have to look at them like pigeons. If you've got so many sick pigeons, eventually those sick pigeons are going to make you sick. Right. So it's not even, I mean, even from that point of view, you still have to take care of the situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How they choose to take care of it, though, is kind of what terrifies me. And you are not as conspiratorial as I am.
No, in fact, we've argued a lot about that. I'm like the opposite of. In fact, during that podcast we were having with Clara, she actually said, John, you're basically the opposite of a conspiracy theorist. You're like, you believe the government is always doing the right thing. And like, yeah, that's me. I'm pro government. Go president. To a fault.
Well, maybe we'll find out who's right at the end of this.
I think at the end, it's one of those situations like where you clearly have to be halfway. You have to be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist and trust a little bit the government that they're not always trying to fuck you, and then you're kind of like probably in the right region.
So yeah, most of the conspiracies that I'm humoring right now revolve around what are governments really doing, and for who are they really worried about, and who are they really taking care of, which are less fantastical. I think we have at least in this country, we have a track record.
You've got Trump and not just you. I mean, England has Boris Johnson, for example, and these people are like, they seem to be much more interested in the interests of companies than in the interests of their population. And in Italy, we're actually kind of lucky in that regard, because we managed to get rid of, for the time being, Salvini, who was kind of like our Trump Boris Johnson figure, our populist guy. And he's like on the sidelines now. He has no power, and he's just like trying to like get into the middle of the conversation. He'll throw accusations now and then against the government, and then people will say, "Come on, shut up, let him work." Ironically, in Italy, people seem to be trustworthy of the government at the time. And this is the kind of thing that can change at any moment. So obviously at the time of our recording, 26th of March, to the point, and this is actually kind of funny, that President Conte, who's the president of Italy, has become a sex symbol. An ironic sex symbol in Italy. And this is a fact. You can find information on this. I don't know how it started, but basically because Conte appears every night on TV, right, talking to the population, and a lot of lonely women are starting to have strange feelings. Apparently, a lot of women are starting to see him attractive. And there's actually a meme website on Facebook and Instagram called Le Bambine di Giuseppe Conte, which translates as the little girls of Giuseppe Conte, which every day posts pictures of the president of Italy with like hearts around his head. And there'll be a meme with him bringing 2 little espressos and say, "Oh, here's a little coffee for my little girls." And it's hilarious. I mean, I die laughing every morning at these memes
Well,
of Giuseppe
in their
Conte.
defense, we have a lot of white males in the southern parts of this country that do the same
Okay.
thing for Trump here, but
Oh, yeah.
it's
That's their
very
sex
similar.
symbol. It's like, oh, I like it. I like it when he just, he sets his wig on his
They just
head.
watch him on the news with a gun in one hand and their dick in the other. So
I can imagine that they do. I mean, there must be like one gay Republican who really gets the hots
I think
for
there's
Trump.
much more than one.
Much more than one.
There's much more than one gay Republican.
I like his ideas. That's why I watch him in my underwear. Oh God.
Speaking of that
But
though, and
yeah.
the idea of what certain groups or political identities wanting to push towards the economic recovery before anything else,
Oh
that's
yeah.
kind of what we're in right now.
Mm.
Trump wanting to by Easter, I think was his projection that everything's gonna be fine by Easter.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, we've literally got
That's a
people
load of
dying
shit.
now and numbers are stacking up and cities are locking down, but we're gonna have this all figured out here in less than a month. I don't see that happen. I think that's dangerous.
No, it's
But
not going to
that's
happen at all. That's going
yeah,
to
that's that
bullshit.
mentality. I think people do, and I said this from the beginning. My comedian buddy Tom Simmons
Uh-huh.
was just talking to me the other day. I think the biggest contributing factor in this country, at least, to the deaths that are going to come, is going to be a direct result of just ignorance,
Yeah,
just
maybe. I guess so.
poor decision making, ignoring warning signs, not being as proactive as we should soon enough or for long enough. I think that's going to definitely add to the body count.
I think that's the problem that we all had. I mean, we had the same problem in Italy because I like the story I was telling you. We basically didn't. I mean, it wasn't just me. I mean, a lot of people just didn't believe it. And you don't want to believe it because
Right.
it's such a crazy situation that you believe it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's the first time in our lives that we've ever gone through something like this. And if you think about it, you say, well, previous generations have, because I mean, they've gone through wars, they've gone through great depressions, they've gone through the Spanish flu. I mean, these are not, unheard of in human history. They're just unheard of for us.
Yeah. Modern
Born
time.
in the 80s, late 70s, whatever, or 90s, we've never experienced it. We've always experienced prosperity. I mean, there's wars, there's illnesses, but it's always somewhere else.
Right.
It's like, there's a war in Syria, there's a war over there, there's an illness in Africa, but there's never anything actually in your home. So I think we kind of like have that perception that at the beginning it was like, oh, it's in China, but it's never going to arrive here. And anyway, the Chinese are dirty. They eat rats, they eat dogs, they eat bats. That's why they get it. We don't eat bats. We're not going to get it. Then Italy gets hit, and I think the other countries are like, well, the Italians are idiots. Their government's always a mess. They're always kissing each other. They like the dolce vita. They're always we have a better system over here in America and England, so we're not going to get it. And then you get it, and then you don't really know what else to do.
Right.
So
Nobody else to blame it on now.
you have nobody else to blame it on. And I because that kind of, I remember looking at the BBC before it hit, and there was like this, I think it was like a Norwegian epidemiologist, and he's like very, 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 very serious, no sense of humor, very, very logical. And he's like, oh, yes, of course, the UK is going to be hit very bad, just like Italy. And the journalist is like, what do you mean? Like, just like Italy? That's not possible. He's like, well, yes, this is a virus.
Right.
That's how viruses act.
Viruses do not discriminate in any kind
They
of way.
do not discriminate. And she was like shocked. She couldn't believe it. What, you mean like the Italians? But we're not Italian. It can't happen to us like it happens to Italy. And he's just like, oh no, this is a virus. It just works this way. It's a law of physics. It's going to hit you in the same way that it hits Italy. It's like just the rays of the sun, or the way that the waves hit the coastline. It's not something that you can stop with your politics or your race. And that was that. And so I think there was that kind of ideology. And actually, I'm kind of worried more for England than the United States now, because I have a lot of friends, obviously, in England, and and I'm hearing their stories. And I have one friend who works for MasterCard, and he says, well, fortunately, we work for a company that's smart and basically started the quarantine many weeks before the government officially started the quarantine, because they realized that the government was made up of idiots.
Right.
And to this moment, like, I think that Boris Johnson has only advised people to stay home and
Really?
hasn't obliged anybody to stay home. And I may be wrong on this because it's changing every moment, but I think what he basically said is like, it's a better idea that you stay home, which effectively means that people have to go to work because their companies tell them, oh, there's no reason for you to stay home because there's no law against it. And so I've seen pictures of like packed trains in London, and that is the worst thing you can
Of
have at this
course,
time.
yeah.
Because then it's all going to come back to you in like 2 weeks. Because remember, it's like an incubation period of 14 days
Right.
on average.
That again, that kind of pushes towards my, my conspiratorial thinking, and the
Mm.
fact that they're just putting dollars above humanity in that case. I mean,
Yeah. No, but I don't even think that's conspiratorial. I mean, I think that's a fact.
right.
I mean,
Well, it depends. Yeah, depending on
know,
what ideology you're talking to at the time.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
I mean, I agree with you wholly. I mean, maybe I don't agree when it comes to like, all political parties are the same and everything like, but when I say that a lot of politicians seem to like want to continue with, I see it like when, when you get sick and you have a job, right?
mm-hmm.
Normal day, you get sick, and there's always those 2-3 days that you're like, well, look, I'm still going to go to work, even though I'm not feeling well, because it will pass. And then at some point you say, no, I feel really bad, I have to stay home. And so that's from the point of view of one individual. I think that that is kind of like what's happening on a global scale, that
Right.
we're, at the beginning, you're like in those first 3 days, we're like, well, we can still pull through and we don't have to lose any money, until the moment in which you realize, no, I'm really bad off, I need to go to sleep and I need to take a week off.
Right.
I can't go back to work yet. And then you realize it, and then you put yourself in the bed and then you relax, which is kind of like why I feel a bit more comfortable being in Italy at this time, even though I'm in the center of everything, because in a way we've put ourselves to bed, and we're just like, we're weathering through it
Right.
at the time. We're not in that moment like, is it going to hit us? Is it not going to hit us? Should we be going out? Should we be going to work? What does the government say? Right now, the government says stay home. And if you can work from home, work from home. And if you can't, then just jack off.
Gotcha.
You know,
Either way,
and
jack off. One way or the
either
other.
way,
Yeah.
jack off. Either way, jack off.
Especially if that's your job, jacking off.
But in the end, I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in the States and England too. And I mean, at some point, somebody's going to realize that no, we can't keep
Yeah.
the system. I mean, the world has to switch off.
Yeah.
For like a month or 2 months or whatever it will take. And
I think one of the, if I'm going to look at silver linings of things, I think that might, at least for the, I'm speaking mostly from this country because this is really the only perspective I know, is I appreciate, might be a bad word, but I'm going to use it. I appreciate that now this population is experiencing a little bit of the lack of control, the unknowing, not knowing where we're going, that a lot of the lesser as in economic or secure or strong countries, whatever, how you want to categorize that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Feel on a regular basis,
Yeah.
third world countries or what have you. We've now got that insecurity here within our borders that in my lifetime we've never had, with the exception of, like 9/11, things like that. There was a brief window there, but this is a countrywide thing for us now. And I'm hoping that one of the byproducts, positive byproducts, is at least now a change of perspective of where we are in humanity, as in there's a togetherness within this tragedy, within this event, within this virus that maybe we didn't appreciate before overall. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Well, I mean, that's like the big contradiction in the United States, is that the United States has effectively never lived a war on its territory since the 19th century.
right.
This is the reality. I mean, the United States has taken part in wars, lots of them, but
Oh,
they've
yeah.
never actually had a war on their territory. And I think that forms your perception of reality. I mean, Europe has had wars on their territory. I mean, you can go to little villages and still see bullet holes from the Second World War,
Right.
And in the United States,
Still
it's really
finding
like,
unexploded ordnances.
and you still find them. Yeah, are you
Yeah.
kidding? There's like, well, just like, I mean, and there's stories everywhere, like just near where I live. And besides the fact that Mussolini was hanged nearby where I live, there's also like there's a little house which is known to have once been a school full of children that a bomb fell on and killed everybody. And so like you pass in front of that house and you feel a chill. You're like, ooh, You know, it was like, oh, there's little children in this orphanage or whatever the hell it was, and you know, they all died when I think probably an Allied bomb, to be honest,
Right.
not even a
Right.
German bomb, you know,
That's
fell
right.
on them. So you know, it's full of these stories. And the United States never really had the crisis. I mean, I guess they kind of had it with the Great Depression, you know, and then of course you have your own internal conflicts, you know, with the you know, the economic crisis, and of course 9/11 was a bit of a window, like you said correctly.
Right.
But you never really lived, and this is effectively a war. I mean, a lot of people have pointed out that we're in wartime conditions, both in staying indoors, in austerity,
Hmm.
and that will probably increase in the next few weeks, and also in decision making. You know, like people will come to a hospital and the doctors have to decide, I only have one bed and I have 5 people, who's most likely to survive?
Right.
And these are terrible decisions that you should never have to make, but that you do make in wartime. And I do find it ironic that the governments, and this goes back to your government distrust, which I am distrustful of governments as well. I mean, I'm just, you know, uh, I'm a bit more radical chic, to go back in my
Right.
being distrustful of governments. But you know, governments have always invested in the military complex and have always taken away from the medical
Right.
services, because the idea is that yes, there could be a war at any time, but as for medical, we can take away from that. We can take away from, you know, the hospitals. We can take away from the schools. But ironically, the next war that we had to fight needed medical resources and not guns.
Right.
And that's gonna change things a lot, I think, when this is over, because I don't think any politician will ever again be able to run on taking away medical services from the people.
Right.
Any politician from this time on, any country, United States, England, Europe, whatever, if they
That's a really
say
good point. God.
we're going to give medical services to everybody, regardless of their income or anything, that person will win. You know, so it's going to change the vision of politics, you know,
Right.
in a certain way. I hope for the better,
Me too.
because one of the positive things of a war, and there are positive things, actually, believe it or not, is that usually society comes out changed, and technology always makes great leaps after a war. You know, so because of war, we have atomic power. Because of war, we have the internet and things like that. And because of war research. And so if this is a war, that means that the medical complex will have enormous leaps after it's over. And that's a positive thing. But first, we have to live through
It does make me appreciate how terrifying biological wars could be.
it. Sorry?
It makes me appreciate how terrifying biological wars, like
Oh,
literal wars,
that
like
is
if this was
terrible.
ever an intentional thing,
Well,
some
this
people
goes
think that it is right now, but
yeah.
I mean, if
So
it
there's
whatever scale,
the whole conspiracy, or I don't know if it's conspiracy, the whole theory
mm,
about it perhaps being man-made and everything. And I like to collect data before I say that anything actually is or isn't. But I mean, like we were mentioning before we started recording, I was saying that yesterday there was this social media moment here in Italy where they released a video that had been recorded on like a news show 5 years ago. And in that video, they said there's these Chinese scientists and they're working on a COVID virus or a coronavirus on bats in a secret laboratory in China. And some researchers think that it's dangerous because it could cross over to man and create a virus. And this thing started making the rounds, and everybody was like, oh, this is proof. This is proof that it was made in a laboratory. And Salvini, the leader of the league, in fact, immediately posted it on his page. So all his followers were immediately reposting it, and he was saying to the government, you need to contact China, you need to tell China that they need to respond to what they have done, etc., etc. Today, things have calmed down. A lot of people have come out saying no, that it was well known that China was doing this research, and we've already done studies into the research, and we have studied the virus, and we know that the virus has not been man-made because there's an imprint that comes from the virus in which you can see if it is created in nature, if it's created by man. And I had heard people say things like this in the last few weeks. I think there was a guy on Joe Rogan who was saying something like that similar.
yeah,
And but the question is, I mean, the reality is, we don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know. I don't know if it was made in a laboratory or not. I
Well,
think the possibilities of it just having crossed over from an animal are quite high.
right.
I also think that if you are making things in a laboratory, they might escape. You know, I'm so. What the hell do I know? I mean, I really don't know anything. I am
The
worried.
argument that well, argument
Yeah.
or thing that people on the
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy side are suggesting
Mm-hmm.
that maybe it's not man-made, but it's man-controlled. It was something that's
It's man controlled. Yeah.
right where it was intentionally let off. It may not be something created, but they knew the results. They knew what it would cause. They knew what it would do, and then
Well,
it's released or inflicted on a population in that context. Uh,
yeah.
it wouldn't have to be
If I
man-made at that point,
I love stories. You
right?
know, I love stories. I love conspiracy theories because I love the stories behind them. I love urban legends. And I consider myself a bit of a storyteller. I mean, every comedian is in a way. You tell stories on a stage. If I wanted to create a story with this, I would in fact say that it is. I would say that it's genetically programmed to hit the Caucasians, and that would explain why it killed more Italians and Spanish than it has Chinese, for example. That this is if I were a conspiracy theorist. I'm not.
Right.
Okay. I'm inventing my story now. And if I wanted to believe that story, I could easily believe that story. You know, I could easily believe that it was a virus that China was creating for a potential war that was to take place in 10 years' time, got out of control, and now it's propagating and everything. But if I start believing that story and if I start promoting that story, I'm putting the world in a difficult situation because that means that we now have to go to war with China
Right.
because that would be an attack on our sovereignty. And honestly, I don't really want a war with China. You know, I don't, so, you know, I mean, it's better for me not to believe that and
Right.
just believe that it's, you know, comes from a bat and that sometimes this happens, you know, and if there's irrefutable data that proves that it has been caused by the Chinese, well, then the Chinese government is going to have to respond to that. But if I do not have that irrefutable proof, then I'm not going to start throwing accusations, which could have consequences that are very serious
Right.
until I have enough proof that those accusations need to be made. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
You know,
It's to me everything. I try to keep as many things on the table
mm-hmm.
as possible, just because how we're looking at things right now is not going to be how we're looking at them 10 years from now. We're going to have so much more
No, not at
data.
all.
We're going to have so much more history to look back on. As far as to kind of wrap up the conspiracy talk, the part that kind of got me least asking more questions was when China themselves and I think it was Iran also
Mm-hmm.
uh, both suggested that the U.S. was involved in this.
Okay.
So I'm like, why are they? If this is nothing man-made or whatever, why do they think that? Is that a some kind of way to deflect blame on themselves for something they did, or did we really do that? And if so, what would be the why would we do that? The unique timing of us, just in the middle of this kind of this, trade war already as it is.
Yeah.
It all timed up right with Russia and Saudi Arabia doing their oil conflict that was driving down oil prices around the planet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of contributing, but again, it could all be coincidental. It could all be timing and things
Well,
like
I
that too.
mean,
But when the
I
government
think,
comes out and accuses us of doing something, then
yeah,
I don't
no,
know.
this is well, I mean, the
Who knows?
Iranian government is known for not being, for loving their own personal conspiracy
Yeah,
theories. You know, I mean, so it's just like, we have conspiracy theories in the Western world, they have conspiracy theories in the Eastern world, in the Middle Eastern world. And often those conspiracy theories are flipped. It's not China, but it's the US that has created it. So, I mean, I'm sure that there's all kinds, and I'm sure, I mean, undoubtedly, like you say, in 10 years' time, people will still be talking about the conspiracy theory of the COVID.
right.
I mean, I know that you're, for example, a big believer in the conspiracy theory of 9/11,
Absolutely.
and I can tell you this, that when 9/11 happened, I remember thinking the next day, there's going to be conspiracy theories about this, and there were, and so I have no doubt when there's a world shaking event, either a negative or positive. So it could be negative like 9/11 or positive like going to the moon.
Mhm.
There's always going to be shall we say, a background story behind it, which you can
Right.
believe or not believe. I'm just more worried about the consequences of the conspiracy theories. Because obviously a conspiracy theory against China seems to really tap into the whole narrative that Trump has, and that I'm very nervous about that narrative.
Well, you should
I don't
be.
want people to be. I don't want, for example, Chinese Americans to be assaulted in the
Well, I
streets.
was just getting ready to say that,
And
that's already happening. That's
I
already
know it
a
is.
thing, and that goes to that degree of ignorance that I'm so
Mm,
worried about. Is there? It's one thing to think and consider something and look at something, but then when you put the ownership of that onto a race or an identity,
hmm
in the case like now Chinese people, or because so many of us are so dumb over here, anybody who looks Asian is
Right. No, no,
automatically
of course. Yeah.
is anybody.
Hawaiian, for
It's
example.
Chinese right now. It's
Yeah,
like,
right, right,
I'm from India. No, you're Chinese. Whatever.
right.
So I'm terrified about that too, because
Well,
there's
yeah, because those people are completely innocent. I mean,
right,
obviously, and they're the first people that are going to be affected by these stories. And that's what I'm worried about more than anything. I mean, if it was created in a laboratory and there's proof, I would like that proof to be brought to life. I want people to respond to it. I want there to be a diplomatic response. I want there to be, but I don't want some poor Chinese kid
right.
to be assaulted in the middle of the street because there's the thought that maybe it was created in a Chinese laboratory. And that's what I'm really worried about. And it happens here. It happened here in Italy too. There were the Chinese people were being attacked. Even before it even hit, they were already being attacked because
I think that's a
the
common
race.
human flaw is like and I think a lot of it has to do with fear,
Of course, yeah.
redirecting that fear that's in the back of your head of not the unknowing and not knowing. We need somebody to blame. We need somebody to put it on.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
Because the
going to be a
thing
big thing.
you can't blame a virus. A virus is invisible. You
Right.
can't blame it. But if you have an enemy, like for example, ironically, last week, because I was saying that there was a spike
Mhm.
in the amount of contagions and deaths here in Italy, a lot of people were blaming that on people who were going out to jog during the
Right.
during because there was like at one point the decree said that if you went outside for jogging it was okay as long as you kept the distance, and so you'd have people on their balconies. There's a whole balcony culture now where people
Right.
like singing on the balconies and playing music. It's here in Italy, it's there in Spain as well. And if you went out jogging you would have people on the balconies yelling at you that you were like a plague bearer and you were bringing the plague, to innocent people who didn't
Right.
deserve it, to such a point that I had to post the meme of, running zombies from Dawn of the Dead, the remake, because this is the perception that we
Right.
had of joggers at this point. And, and that was because they needed an enemy. The enemy became the people who go jogging. Now the enemy can become the Chinese American or the Chinese Italian, whatever.
Right.
And it's like sometimes we have to accept that there isn't an enemy.
Right.
Sometimes it's just shit happens, and you got to just solve it
Well, one
together.
day ignorance will be the enemy. Maybe
Yeah, exactly. It's the
that
only enemy
that'll
there
fix
is.
everything. What else did I want to talk to you about? I wanted
Mm,
to. What is the? Is there a position that the majority of either your friends or just people that you
mm.
talk with there about the degree of risk? Is everybody right now, or is everybody on the same page? Like here, we're still
Mm.
debating, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it's a really big deal. Is there
Oh
is
no, there's no debate anymore.
okay? So everybody is
I
secure
think
that
there's
this is
no
over.
debate anymore. No, there was. I mean, certainly before, but now, no, not at all. There's no doubt that we have to stay indoors and that we have to try to avoid the, passing it around as much as possible. There's debates on other things. I mean, there's debates on, how are we going to recover economically? What is the government doing for people who don't have food? What is the government doing for people who don't have any money? Are we going to get any reimbursement from the government? The answer is yes, no, how, those are the debates that we're having. But when it comes to infection rate, there's no doubt anymore. And I think
Okay.
that's going to happen everywhere. Once you
That's what I was
start
wondering. I was like, I wonder what
yeah.
the body count needs to be here within the United States before we have a consensus thought that, hey, yeah, this is really dangerous. We need to do something.
I don't know. I'd say that the debate kind of leveled out. I mean, disappeared, petered out, and after a week in. So that would make me think that, like in a week's time, there probably won't even be much of a debate, even in the States or in England. I hope. I mean, but I
Right.
don't. I don't think there will be, because I think what happens is there's a strange sense of human survival instinct that seems to kick in, and also a good sense of community.
Right.
seems to kick in as well. And I think you'll be experiencing that in as well. I don't think it's specific to any one culture. I think it's typical just of the human nature that at some point we kind of like just help out each other.
Okay.
And I think that kicked in about a week here, and I think it'll kick in probably in a week in over in the States and in England. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can get over this. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be tough afterwards because of the economic consequences and everything. There'll be social differences and stuff, and I don't know how long it's going to last. But I do think we can get over it.
That's an angle that I don't think people are appreciating, is the after effect.
Mm,
A month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, the ripple effect of what this is going to do. I don't even I can't understand it because I don't know enough about, the
I
workings of finance and all that. But I do know it's going to be a huge imprint, much like 9/11 was, the economic
mm,
residual effect of that. And
yeah.
then, but this is so much larger. I mean, on a world scale, it feels like everything is going to be brought. I mean, just looking at my finances personally, I was finally getting somewhere financially where I could, have some money set aside. I was saving and building up, and now all my money has been redirected into, I'm furloughed now, and now I'm using this money to we bought a supply of food to have and everything like that,
Hmm.
and getting bills kind of, where they're at least caught up and everything.
Okay,
So,
but so you've got everything under control,
oh yeah,
basically.
I'm
Oh,
not
that's good.
suffering or
That's
anything like
good.
that.
So I
So
mean, in
I'm
the
in
end, I
much
mean,
better shape than most people probably.
yeah.
From
I mean, I think you could say that it may be okay. It sucked that you had all that, economic, all that work that you had to do to get that money, but at least you had it when you
Yeah,
needed it.
exactly.
You know,
But
ironically, if you had been focusing only on your comedy career, then
yeah,
you'd be fucked. Because I know a lot of
exactly.
comedians that are fucked. I mean, people who actually lived off of comedy,
Yeah,
and
and and anybody who doesn't know, living off comedy is a very weird thing. You're
yeah.
not really,
I
you're
mean, it's
surviving while doing comedy is kind of
oh yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
accurate.
I mean, it's bad at the best of times.
Yeah, even if
You could
you could have multiple TV credits and you're still eating ramen noodles. That's the
absolutely no,
reality of
it's
stand-up
crazy. I
comedy.
mean, the reality is a comedian lives off comedy because it's the only thing he can do because he loves it so much, or he has no other opportunity in the world.
Right.
And that's when you live off of comedy.
Yeah.
And I know comedians who are really in dire straits at the moment, and comedians, and not just comedians, also comedy authors. I mean, I have a little bit of a network, so I mean, I know, and I speak with them daily.
I would
And
say anybody
it's
who's
tough.
on the creative end,
Yeah,
who creates things that are consumed just for pleasure, not necessities, so to speak. I think anybody in those kind of backgrounds, if that's was your source of income, things are
yeah.
greatly changed for you.
But you're lucky, actually, if you think about it, because you focused a lot on the podcast, and podcasting is going to survive because it's it doesn't require direct contact.
Right.
And I think that was the big difference between American comedy and European comedy when it hit, is that European comedy never really went into the whole direction of the podcasting. It
Interesting.
was still live, you know.
Right.
And there were a few comedians that were kind of doing podcasts, but I mean, to be fair, the only people listening to them were other comedians. There was no general audience listening to them.
Right.
So, but while in America you have this whole culture of podcasting that kind of started 10 years ago or 7 years ago, whatever, exploded to the point where everybody had their podcast, and now is eradicated part of comedy. So I think that comedians can take advantage of that in the
Right.
States to stay relevant, to stay alive. Well, in Italy, they're kind of doing it now, but it's like they're catching up. So you've got people doing like live Facebook shows and stuff, and some of them are more successful than others. There's been so many of them lately. I haven't even watched one.
Right.
Like
Neither
all
have I.
my friends are doing these live shows, and I'm not even watching. I should be watching them because they're good friends of mine, and I'm just ignoring them completely because I'm too busy just watching movies. It's like
Right. Right.
I prefer to watch professional entertainment, which has been created by people who actually know what they're doing,
Right.
rather than watch my good friends. But I do hope the show works out for you.
Right.
Okay, you just let me know when it's all put together, whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think the podcasting thing is gonna weather the storm a little bit for the American comedians.
We'll see. Um, or maybe the entertainment industry will be different after this.
Oh, yeah.
What's in demand versus what's not. Is that a? Am I right to
I don't
think
know.
that?
I have no idea. I mean, all I know is that I think that now they were talking about releasing movies directly on
Yeah.
online platforms. It's that basically means that this is like the last nail in the coffin to physical cinemas, and
Right.
that's a sad thing because I'm a big fan of movies. I've got a Forbidden Planet poster at my back. I mean,
Pretty
I
dope.
love films, and stuff like that, and I love going to the movies. And I love the
Right.
concept of the smell of popcorn and that whole poetic universe, and that's basically was already dying out, and this is like the final nail in the coffin. I mean, how the hell are they going to survive this?
Right.
Um,
Gonna be a lot of
other than
changes
that,
now.
yeah, that's
Right.
going to be a big change, I guess. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I can't even make predictions. I mean, I was the idiot who was going around, thinking this was all going to end, halfway through March, and that I could have my birthday party with all my friends again. So obviously, what do I know?
Right.
I really don't know shit. I mean, I'm not going
Right.
to pretend that I do.
Well,
But
that's part of the problem. I think there's
yeah.
even the people in positions of leadership really don't know, what they're making their
Oh yeah.
decisions on how, whatever influence is the strongest at the time, which is
Mm,
kind of the default of most politicians anyway,
yeah.
is reacting to what's going to make the people most happy or
But I hope it
support
doesn't
their.
kill stand up, because I mean, if it becomes a thing where it's like a series of continuous quarantines which go on one after the other, and that you can't really have live shows anymore, I mean, that's going to be the death of stand up comedy. That would be
Yeah,
such a terrible
as we
thing,
know, yeah.
and
And I
comedians can survive. They can move into other things. I'm making like little sketches in my house, because my girlfriend's a filmmaker and stuff. We started we were filming one this morning. We released one last week. I mean, you can find ways. If you work in comedy, you can find ways to survive it.
Is
But
that available to
stand-up
the public,
comedy,
and can you direct people to that? Any way to
yeah,
do
no,
it?
absolutely. I did. I made two. One's in Italian. It was a parody of Escape from New York. It was Escape from Milano. It was
Okay.
great, great work. She did everything. I didn't do anything. I just wrote it. She did a great job. But I'm thinking of releasing it in an English format next few days anyway. So
Okay.
then I'll redirect you to that. And then the last one, which I'm really proud of, was called La Custode. And we basically managed to make a little short spaghetti western in our
Oh, no
house.
shit.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll link it to you later.
Yeah, I'll make sure I share all that stuff and make it
Yeah,
available.
yeah. No, there's also English subtitles, so you can follow. It's a stupid little thing. Okay, it's really really stupid, but it's just the fact that we can make it in our house, with zero budget. It makes me feel satisfied.
Right.
So I mean, I think comedians can somehow find a way to get by.
Right.
But stand up, and this, I'm sure, is the most pure essence of comedy. It's like the pure core of comedy.
Right.
There's no barrier. There's no falsification. There's no costume. Nothing. It's just you and the fucking audience, and you better make them laugh now.
Right.
And that is something that I do not want to lose,
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah, I didn't really take time to think about that or appreciate that till you said that. It's like if we do go into these ripples of yeah, no, we got to go back to the house now. Time to lock down.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be so detrimental to that because you need that. I mean that is stand up comedy. It's that
Oh yeah.
that audience girl guy on stage talking to a group of people. That's the way it works. I mean, you can try as hard as you can to do this live, like we're recording this right now, to
Yeah.
try to do a show in that form, but it's never won't even be close to what that connection between the audience and the performer is.
I mean, obviously, we're being poetic about it when we
Yeah.
say, but I mean, why not? What the fuck? I mean, I love it so much. It's like, and that like stand up is always better in a certain way when it's the more intimate it is, the better it is.
Right.
So if you ever went to see like a stand up show in a big arena,
I
it
hate them.
sucks.
Yeah.
Exactly, because there's no intimacy. It's
Anything
like,
above 200 people, I don't. It's too much.
Exactly. But when you ever went to see that one comedy show, maybe with someone you never heard of, but it was just like 20 of you and you were all huddled together, and there was this one, and we were like clawing at the comedian.
Right.
Like
That's the best.
That's the best, and then you just this back and forth with the audience. Maybe there's some guy who was too drunk and he was ruining the show, but somehow you managed to pull through. I mean, that is the pure essence of stand-up. And so the closer you are, the better it is. The farther you are, the worse it is. Which is why I hope that this thing doesn't kill that closeness.
Right. God. Or maybe the comedian could just be like, maybe everybody will have like their own little personal bubbles, like Boy in a Bubble. Remember that movie?
I actually never saw that movie. That was with John Travolta, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We just all kind of go through the world now in our own little bubble suits. That would work, right?
I've never seen that film. I should watch it one
You
day.
should watch it.
It
That's
sounds
very
like, is it a good movie or?
no, not at all.
Oh,
But
I heard it's not at all a good movie. Then I must see it.
right, yes. Some movies you don't watch because they're good. You just watch it because you have to.
Of
That's one of
course,
those ones
because
you
it's
have
John
to. 'Cause that,
Travolta in a bubble.
that might be a peek into the future of where we're going, man. We're just all, we become a bubble society. We have
Oh,
literal safe spaces at that point. Do you have your safe space on? That's a brand of bubble. I got the new safe space bubble.
Oh yeah,
Got a Nike
safe
swoosh
space.
on the side of it.
What happened to all the safe space people? They don't give a shit anymore. It's like
They're-
I guess when things are going too good, you look for problems that don't exist.
Right. Now we've got a real problem. We can put
They
all
got
this
a
stuff
real
in the back burner.
problem. It's like,
Though we
yeah,
did
but
have
it's
that
not
moment-
okay what you said. It's a fuck you. You know, if I go to the supermarket, I could die.
We did have that brief moment, though.
Comfortable with what you said. It's like, look, I don't feel comfortable with a fucking virus ravaging my friends
Right. That should be the
outside
focus.
my front door. Okay, I don't feel comfortable. Sometimes the world doesn't make me feel comfortable. Sorry, you know.
Right.
God.
We did have that brief moment though when well actually I guess it's still going on now when Trump referred to it as the Chinese virus, right?
Yeah.
And then
But
now
actually,
everybody's lost their shit. But it's funny though because here in American media there's a video floating around right now of before that became an issue of all these media outlets doing the exact same thing. The Chinese
wasn't the
virus,
issue
the
with
Wuhan
Trump?
virus.
But wasn't
What's
the
that?
issue with Trump the fact that he had crossed out Corona and rewritten Chinese?
Oh yeah,
Or
he
was that
hammered
fake?
the he
Was that
hammered the
fake
point
news?
home.
I don't know.
I don't know if that was legitimate or not too,
I
but
don't know.
he-
It's like
you could tell what he was saying.
It
and
wasn't that he said Chinese virus. Is that he actually said, "Oh no, here it says Corona. Let me just rub that out and write Chinese." And let me put a little man with a hat too.
He's got a hateful editor that just fixes his thing. This is a little too PC for you, sir. We need to spice this one up a little bit. Can you make a wall reference? Can we wall out this virus? Can we put that in there somewhere?
Well, did you hear that Prince Charles got it now?
I shouldn't say things that are mean about people I don't really give a shit about.
Said them. Everybody's already said them. It's okay. And of course the joke that went around in Italy goes to the fact that Corona means crown in Italy. And so the joke is this is the only crown he'll ever have. It was the first joke that came out and everybody made it. You know, so
That works.
it does work, yeah.
Yeah. So far, I'm the least sympathetic of all the people who have it. I think he holds the crown of being least sympathetic for me.
No, but it's significant that a person who is like wealthy and success can still get hit by this.
Let me ask you about this though.
Yeah.
Have they still not released the illness of the Pope? Is that still being kept a secret?
Why? Because is the Pope secret? Is the Pope secret? Is the Pope ill?
Is he?
Is he? Is it? No, I didn't know about this. I'm honest. I'm sorry.
Well, he had met with a
I don't
bunch
follow Pope news very.
I have a Google alert set up for Pope alerts.
Oh, you got to Google it. Everything about the Pope. It's my favorite person.
Yeah. This white smoke starts coming out of my computer when there's news about it.
Smoke comes out of your computer. Okay, so tell me what happened with the Pope.
Well,
I don't know anything.
This was 2 weeks ago. I guess he had met with a bunch of people who were.
That's what he does. He meets with people.
Yeah. Well, you meet with a bunch of people who were diagnosed or suffering with coronavirus.
Shit.
And I guess good on him for that. And then he got sick the next day. And then it's still to this point, at least the last thing I read or heard last couple of days, it's still, they're not releasing what he was sick of.
Well, I dare say that the Catholic Church is very good at covering things up.
Right.
They have a long experience when it comes to not talking about things.
Right.
So this is the least that they've done in that regard.
Right.
But I guess I don't know. I mean, the Pope, poor Pope. If he, that means that the whole Vatican Church would be infected, right? Because like all the Swiss guards and the cardinals,
yeah,
the nuns. It's funny that I don't really give a shit, just like you with the Prince Charles, because I'm the most anti-clerical person you could ever meet. So it's like,
Well, it definitely brings the whole religion thing into question
Yeah,
when the Pope gets
yeah.
sick. It's like, well, he doesn't like you at all,
Well,
really.
actually, there was a funny thing. This is a funny thing regarding religion in Italy, is that you have to understand Italy's relationship with religion. That it's an extremely Catholic country, and it's
Hmm.
also an extremely anti-Catholic country because, like, Italians by their nature are anti-authoritarian in a certain sense. So they both, they go to church and then they say "fuck you, God" at the same time.
Right.
And sometimes this is so intertwined in their culture that the hate of the church and the respect of the church go hand in hand. So what happened is at one point there was a release that said that the Madonna herself,
Hmm.
not Madonna, but the Madonna,
The
was
Madonna.
going to be hanged, was going to be basically was going to be attached to a helicopter, and they were going to fly the helicopter over every region of Italy in order to bless Italy, from the coronavirus. And so
Oh
obviously
my
the
God.
meme that was released was obviously whoever said that the Catholic Church isn't doing anything to solve this situation. It's like, we're gonna fly the Madonna over every region, and don't you dare say that we're not taking care of this situation in a serious manner.
The only thing would hope would come out of that would be that every other religion would feel obligated to compete with that
That
and
would be
take
so cool.
their whatever their image is, with the exception of the Muslim religion, because you can't have
Muhammad.
you can't have a Muhammad, because that would be
Well, you put like a
uh,
moon or something, right?
something, and then you just all fly that around.
Yeah,
They're
it'd be
all
cool. You could have
competing.
like and they would fight with each other too. So you'd have the helicopter with the Madonna that attacks the helicopter with the Buddha, and then
Right.
you have like Krishna flies in, and then you have these like alliance. That would be a great movie.
Right.
I would love to see a movie about like religious pilots. That even more. I can imagine like planes which are piloted by the messiahs of each religion, and
Oh
they
yeah. Right.
dogfight. Yeah, and then that'd be like a Top Gun sort of situation. I
I think you
think
have
would be
your
great.
next film project. I think you
There
should.
we go. It's my next film project. That. You've already given me an idea. Thank you very much.
You're well done. 10%. That's all I ask.
Great.
Let's kind of wrap this up and
Mm,
talk about what you're dealing with on a personal level. You kind of mentioned it already. You got your girlfriend there with you. You've
yeah.
got somebody, companionship. You've got somebody who can cook for you. That's really good.
Mm.
Uh, how long have you been contained? How long do you are from right now? What do you know? How long do you think you're going to be contained in this situation? What is your situation? What are your limitations? Give me kind of
Oh
everything, your
yeah.
day-to-day
So
life
the
now.
the point is this. I mean, I can only leave the house to basically go shopping. You can go shopping. You have to go to the nearest supermarket or the nearest food shop.
Hmm.
And you can only enter the supermarket like two at a time or something. So that means that you have these long
Really?
lines outside,
Okay.
and everybody's socially distanced. And so if you're gonna go, you really can't go shopping for like one thing. So excuse me, it's
Yeah.
like every time I realize that I forgot something, like I don't have any more tomato sauce, I'm fucked because I can't go back to the supermarket. I have to do one shopping, and that has to be good enough for the whole week. That's the only thing I can go out for. In theory, also for cigarettes, but I've stocked up on loose tobacco,
Okay.
and I roll them up because I went to college, so that so
Right.
I have that experience in my backpack, and so that's it basically. Besides that, I can't leave, so I'm stuck here in the house. What do I do? I try to create a routine. I get up in the morning, I take a shower, I cook, I have breakfast. I try not to sleep in. I have my work, so I'm in remote. I speak with other people. Um, then I have lunch. And then the evening comes, I play a board game with my girlfriend, and then we watch a film, and then we go to sleep. And that's it. The only thing you can do really is kind of like try to create a sort of routine. I try to respect the routine of the week because I think that keeps me sane. So like on a Saturday, I'll sleep in, and on a Friday, I'll wake up a little bit early as if it's a weekday.
Right.
Because at least then I don't kind of like lose my mind and forgetting which day it is, what time it is, and everything like that. Last Saturday we decided to do the Lord of the Rings marathon,
Holy shit.
extended version. It
Right.
took
Of
us the
course.
whole day. And that was cool because that was like a diversion, from normality. Maybe this Saturday we'll do a Back to the Future marathon or something. I mean, you do what you can. I'm a big nerd, so I've got role playing games. We play
Nice.
online, and there's everybody's playing online now. Dungeons and Dragons
I
and
can imagine. Yeah.
all those other games. I don't know how much you are into that world, but that world is actively promoting online activities. I haven't been playing much video games, strangely enough, because I thought I'd be playing. Probably if I were alone, I'd be playing video games like crazy. But maybe because I have, as they say, the pussy. It's
Right.
a different situation.
Much better game.
It's a much better game. So I don't really play video games that much, but we'll see if that changes. So that's basically all it is. I mean, it's kind of really boring, to tell you the truth. It's like somebody said, this is the most boring apocalypse that you could ever have.
Yeah, it's a real slow roll on
It's
this
just
one here.
slow. Yeah, it's like
We haven't
it's
got to
like
the
you ever-
exciting parts yet.
Yeah, the movies are much more interesting with big explosions and zombies running and shit. Here it's just like,
Right. That's usually how it is. It's always
Yeah, I
more
guess so,
theatrical in the movies. What about enforcement? To what degree of enforcement are they keeping you in your home?
I don't know.
What do you know?
Because I don't know. I mean, I know that the army is around, and I know that the police officers are out. But I mean, like, I have gone out, and I'll admit it. I've gone in a couple cases. I walked a little farther, than the nearest supermarket just to stretch my legs, and I'd go to the next nearest supermarket because the muscle pains are getting hard.
Right.
I mean, I'm not moving at all. So, it's like, unless I do yoga, I'm not going to get much physical activity. So, and I would see police cars pass by, but they seemed to just let me go. Like they wouldn't stop. I think that probably when I was going out, the police officers were like, well, yeah, we should be enforcing this, but it's a pain in the ass for everybody. I'm not going to stop everybody.
Right.
Now I think the enforcement has become a bit more serious. And so it's kind of like luck of the draw. If you get the officer who doesn't give a shit or the officer who's taking it seriously. But in theory, the idea is that if you go out and you don't have a certificate that says that you have a valid reason for being outside, which can be because you're going to the supermarket or because you're going to assist an older person who is not self-sufficient, or because you're going to work but you are an essential worker and therefore you're allowed to go to work. In that case, you can receive a fine of up to, I think, 4,000 euros. It keeps on going up. And in theory, you can even be put in jail.
Wow.
I don't know of anybody who has, but that's what the decree does say.
You mentioned military presence. Is that something that's not? I've no understanding of Italy as far as, is there? Was not a visible military presence before.
Well, no,
this,
it was actually because
Okay.
because of the terrorism threats,
Right.
You would see soldiers around town. I mean, I remember the first soldiers started pouring in, I think 3-4 years ago. So if you went, for example, to the center of the city where Duomo is, the cathedral, there would always be military trucks there because there were obviously constant terrorist threats. So I mean, yeah, I mean it's not like you don't feel like you're in a police state because you were kind of used to it before.
Interesting.
In a certain way, seeing officers.
Is it more so now though?
I don't know, because to tell you the truth, I don't go out much.
Okay.
To tell you the truth. So
like if you look out your window, you don't see every hour.
You see, my window.
Patrolling.
My window, you see, looks into an inside garden courtyard,
Okay.
which is actually very nice because at least I don't have to see the city. I see the trees and the green, but obviously at this point puts me at a disadvantage because I really don't know what it's like outside. I do know that the first time I went outside under this situation, it was like a ghost town. I mean, there was like this little fog, and everybody was walking around with masks in total silence. And they were, every time they would come towards you, they would just move out of the way to create the social distance from you. And then at one point, I heard like a ghostly cough come off from the distance.
And everybody looks that one direction.
Right. And I just heard that and I ran away from it out of fear. And then I came home and I had a panic attack.
Holy shit.
I couldn't take it. It's like I feel better when I'm inside now than if I go out because it's so fucking depressing outside right now. And actually, if you want to see, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember, but my girlfriend was looking at it yesterday. There's a website where you can see cameras. You might know this already. You can see like city cameras. I don't know what it's called.
For Italy
You can see
specifically,
city,
is that or
yeah, of every city. So like if you want to see
oh,
like Venice, there's a city camera and you can see the Ponte Vecchio in Venice. If you want to see Rome, there's a city camera and it will show you the Colosseum. And if you want to see London, and if you want to see any city, I think from all around the world or at least Europe, and you can actually see what's happening currently in this moment
I'll look that
in
up
all
then.
of those cities. So look that up because it's fascinating because you actually see like whole squares that are empty,
Right.
and there's like maybe some soldiers, and then there's like a guy I saw like there was one scene I was walking where there's like a guy walking down the Spanish steps in Rome, and he just was walking down, and then the cops went up to him, and then they were talking, and I was making up the voices between them because obviously I'm a comedian, so I have to make everything
You got to
into a
make everything
joke.
funny.
Yeah, exactly.
There, that's as bad of all this is I always like to study. I don't know if that's the right word for my intelligence level, but I like to take time to appreciate the change in culture and society when things like this happen, good or
Mm,
bad, anything significant. And
yeah.
I haven't worked for the last week. I took off, with my paid time off time, but now I'm forced into furlough now anyway.
Mm,
But this past week, the only places I've been are grocery stores and like a hardware store, getting some essential things that we may need or do need.
yeah, yeah.
That's it. But the week prior to that, when week before last, I was still working. The job I do, I work what's asset recovery, basically recovering
Yeah, yeah, I know what you
repossessing
do.
vehicles. Yeah,
Because I
and
stalk you.
right, we stalk each other. It's a mutual stalking,
We stalk each other. It's like,
right? But I work a lot very late at night. 2,
mm,
3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I
all
go through
right.
some of the lower income areas of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and noticing the change in just the what I call the late night
Mm-hmm.
culture. A lot of drug dealers in some of the areas I'm at, a lot of prostitutes in some of the areas I was at,
Oh, that's so cool.
and going into like convenience stores late at night, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this, I was sensing a near tangible change of energy as this was day to day unfolding, and you
Yeah.
could feel it was an unspoken, unsaid type thing, but you could just feel like looking in other people's eyes, you could see a little fear,
Mm-hmm.
unease, unrest. And I could tell every time I walk into some place where they don't know me or I don't know them, we're sizing each other up right now. Is this guy sick? Is that guy sick? Do
Yeah,
I
I
need
know
to
you.
worry about him? How they put the change in your hands when you pay for something. It's
Oh, yeah,
very,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? They try to hurry up and get it out of there without touching you. And I
You
don't
can
know.
feel it changing. Yeah.
It's very weird.
Well,
And then I was
yeah.
worried about the prostitutes too, because I was like driving down the roads. I'm
You
like,
kidding?
I'm like,
I
it's
was
got to be
thinking
really
about them
hard to
too.
make a dollar right now if you're a
Yeah, no. In
prostitute.
fact, I was reading the other day of like a prostitute here in Milan who was arrested 3 or 4 times, and she kept on saying, I'm trying to make a living.
Right.
That's what I'm doing. It's like this is my way of making a living. Ironic, they're the ones who need the social contact more than anything. And what are they gonna do? Become all cam girls all of a sudden?
Right.
What are you gonna do? It's no, it's bad. I mean, I think we don't think enough about those people. We don't think about the most disadvantaged because
Well,
those are the
something
people that.
you had mentioned before we started recording was
Yeah.
what are the impacts? Or you actually said you had a friend who's an alcoholic.
Oh
Who's
yeah, but he's in the States.
oh,
But
he's in the
yeah,
state. Okay.
exactly. But
So
I have a friend who's an alcoholic because here in Italy it's not really much of an issue because you can buy booze in supermarkets any type. We don't have the liquor store concept.
right.
Okay, but in the States you have the liquor store, and I think he
Right.
was saying that they were afraid they were going to close down the liquor stores,
Right.
right?
Uh,
And he said if they do, then I'm actually an alcoholic in the sense I need it to survive, and I risk dying
Right.
if I can't get my regular boost trip. So that led me thinking about people who suffer from like addictions. Now, I suffer from a minor addiction, which is tobacco. I like to smoke. Okay, but to be fair, if I stop smoking, I'll be grumpy for a while and I'll get over it.
Right.
But if you suffer from something like heroin addiction or alcohol addiction or something really really serious, what are you going to do in that situation? Because I'm sure the supply line is dried up at this point. I mean, here in Italy, unfortunately, marijuana is not legal, and already that's dried up. So I can only imagine in the case of harder drugs, what the situation must be for like, heroin addicts, and what's happening to them. Are they going to, is this a good thing for them? Are they going to get over it? Are they going to get over the addiction? Or is it going to be a bad thing because they don't have access to it? I mean, what kind of social structures are being put in place to take care of these people? I know that the homeless have been pretty much left to themselves,
Right.
And the homeless live off of city presence. They live off of people giving them money as a panhandler, and they live off people, throwing away food in the bins. If those people are no longer there, then these homeless people are going to be effectively suffering and going hungry.
Right.
And if the only place they can go to is a soup kitchen, but in the soup kitchen there's social distancing, so they can't allow as many people in there as they would like, that's going to be a serious problem for them. And that's going to be a problem in Los Angeles, of course, for example, but in all American cities which have a homeless population. So like the homeless, the drug addicted, the addicted, and what about lonely people? What about people who live alone? I'm in phone contact with some people who have nobody at their house. They don't even have a cat. And these people are going insane. What about people who are with a partner but do not have a good relationship with that partner? Like, because I'm lucky because I'm with a person that I'm crazy
Right.
about. I'm really happy to be with this person. She's happy to be with me. But what if I'm like in a relationship that's going on for 10 years, and maybe, I'll be honest, I know somebody who was having an affair,
Right.
okay, before this. I'm wondering about that person. Like, what's that person going to do now? This person can't see the person they were having the affair with.
Right.
It's fuck. This person must be going crazy. And so, I can imagine, domestic violence. What about depression? What about people
Oh
who
God, I
suffer
didn't
from
even think
depression?
about that.
You
About
know?
the because the added any kind of stressor,
Oh yeah,
to a domestic abuser or something like that, they tend to take it out on people around them. Now you're forced to be locked into these. That's one
yeah.
I hadn't considered yet. I did think about I'm interested, again, a bad word, but what happens to the suicide rate over the next two
I've been
months?
thinking about that myself. In fact, I'm wondering why we haven't started this discussion yet, because it's clear that there's going to be a rise in suicides. I mean, come on. If I were alone, okay, fuck, I'd even be thinking about it a little bit.
Right.
Let's be honest here. It's like I'd be alone. I'd be, every day. That's what I'm saying. I try to keep a routine. I try
Mm-hmm.
to, have little things that break the routine. I try to eat regular meals. I try to take care of myself, do exercise, but it's very easy to slip and to stop doing that, especially if it goes on and on and on. And then politicians tell you, look, we're going to have to do another 3 weeks. But I was about to leave the house. I mean, it's hard
Right.
staying indoors.
The
Like,
only advantage I have is I've done 7 months in a county jail before, and it's way
oh,
worse. It's way worse time when you're in jail because you don't have some of the freedoms of technology and access. And I definitely didn't have my girlfriend with me.
oh gosh, are you sure?
Well, I said girlfriend. I didn't have my
Okay.
girlfriend with me. There's a difference. So I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
no, I
It's a
can
little
imagine
easier for
you're
me to
right. Yeah.
be locked into a room, so
No,
to speak.
I guess you're right. Although at least they would let you. I suppose they would let you go out for some air
Kinda.
at some point of the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you go for a little walk. We can't even do that.
Yeah. You guys can't even just do like a walk around the block type thing? Is that
No, no, now no. Before they did allow it. Now I'm not really sure. I think the only exception at this point is like if you have a dog, you can
okay?
go out with the dog, but only around your block.
It's a reason
And
to
then
get
you
a
can go
dog now.
back in. Yeah,
You know?
right. I got a cat.
Go walk the cat.
Go walk my cat. She's sleeping in a bag right
Right. Yeah, but we are going to be allowed, at least as the Minnesota one,
now.
is that we're going to be allowed to do exercise time
Mm.
within our general area. I don't know what the parameters are of that, but what have you.
Yeah, well,
But what's
we had that. We had that we were allowed to, and then at one point they had to close down the parks because people were having parties there.
oh,
And
geez.
so I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to last.
Right. So
But
I'm
anyway,
glad that's not just an ignorant thing happening here, because that
no. But
happened here where we had
everybody acts the
the
same.
spring breakers down in Florida. It's like, fuck it, we're just gonna go down here and interact. And
Yeah.
now
Well,
some of
actually,
them are suffering.
we were lucky that it wasn't warm weather yet,
Uh,
because I think what you had is like in Florida, I saw there were like the
mhm.
beaches were full of people. That's because the warm weather hit. and in Italy it was still a little bit cold, so it was
Right.
just before that
All the
happened.
nude beaches haven't opened up there yet, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that if it had been during the summer, everybody would have been on the beach, and we'd probably have a higher infection rate than we have now,
Ugh.
even higher, you know.
Well, let's wrap this up. But
Mhm.
just, do you have any thoughts? It can be, what you want people to take from this experience that we're all sharing, or
My
dealing with
thought,
what you're dealing with right now.
yeah,
What can we
my
share?
my thought is look towards Italy, because I really do believe that Italy is 2 weeks ahead. So if you want to see the direction it's going to go in your hometown, just look towards what's happening in Italy. Don't think that it's going to be that much different. And so that you kind of have an idea of how to move. If you see that, let's say the better case scenario, if you see things are getting better in Italy, then that should be a ray of hope for you, that it's going to get better for yourself as well. If you see that things are getting, like the deaths are spiking, then you can say, okay, look, I can reasonably assume that in 2 weeks there'll be a spike in deaths. And then if the deaths go down, then I can reasonably assume that another 2 weeks the deaths will go down. That's the only thing I think, is that it's what we should have probably done here in Italy, looking at China, but we didn't do.
Right.
Is like, not think that you're better or different. I mean, we're all pretty much the same. We're all human beings, so we all pretty much act in the same way. And governments, who more, who less, they pretty much are going to be acting in the similar manner. I mean, you saw, because I mean, okay, you've got Trump in the States, but you also have local governments that are basically the ones who are practically enacting the quarantines and the close downs. So I
Exactly.
mean, your local Minnesotan government is the one who's effectively working on the lockdown, I suppose, right?
Right. Correct.
Right. So I mean, that's the only thing I think. I mean, just and try to try to keep yourself sane during the close down. Just it's hard, because there's moments where you're going to break down, and people next to you are going to break down. So try to be supportive of the people next to you when they break down, and try to get some support from them when you break down. Call a friend who might be alone, because I think is important things, like everybody should like choose one friend that they know is alone, and keep in touch with them throughout the quarantine or throughout the close down. And if everybody does that, I think we can all kind of like help each other out a little bit.
Right.
And that's it pretty much, because it's really just a lot of waiting. It's really tedious, to be fair.
It is.
It's a boring Armageddon.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be interesting how it all plays out. Definitely would want to check back in with you if there's a drastic change. So we might have to do this again, man. But I appreciate you taking the time, man, and wish you, your girlfriend, your whole country, I mean, the very best.
Oh no, I wish you the best
outcome.
as well, Joey. Best luck for all of Minnesota, and also all of the United States, and anybody who might be listening. I wish you the best of luck. Just stay safe, as they say. Don't play any crazy risks, because it's risky. And don't forget also, I mean, it's not just a risk for yourself. I mean, if you get infected and you pass it on to somebody who maybe has health condition, you're basically, maybe you yourself only had a small sickness, but that person might die. So I mean, take care of it for yourself and for the whole community,
Right.
and then fuck everything else.
Right. The care, but I think that's good. I think that what you stumbled on there was probably the best message right now, is just appreciate how interconnected we all are, good and bad, and try to make the best of it. And I don't know, man, just, we're all humans in this. I think that should be
Of course.
the best baseline right now. I don't know. All right, man.
Well, Joey, I wish you the best, and I hope that after this, this is all over, you get back into your whole comedy thing, because I hope we both do, actually. I gotta tell you the truth. I had the fucking hell, I had finally gotten something for TV.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was supposed to film right now as we're speaking.
I've got a couple other friends who had some things
Fucking
going
hell.
on for them that
It was like, I was so fucking annoyed, because the first time I got this opportunity, I broke my ankle. Now I got this opportunity, and this thing happened. So God. Anyway, we'll see how it works out, and I hope everything works out for you too. I really like your comedy album. I already told you this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Some really good stuff. So I am looking forward to hearing some more material.
Okay. Well, let's hope there's an audience.
Let's hope there's an audience left. Okay.
All right, brother. I love you, man. Thank you.
You too. Bye, Joey.
Bye.